Hi, I'm Steve Emmerich. I'm the manager of Preferred Client Relations at Asset Strategies International, and I also oversee Asset Strategies' Rare Tangible Asset Strategy program for our clients. One of the big parts of this strategy for our clients is Stanley Gibbons and rare stamps that can be put in a client's asset portfolio. Jeff, thanks for inviting us here to the Stanley Gibbons offices in London. We really appreciate it. And Carl, good to see you.
Good to see you. Jeff, thanks for the week out. We appreciate it. Great.
This has been a great week. We've learned a lot. We've been dealing with Stanley Gibbons for 4 to 5 years. We are currently the North American representative for Stanley Gibbons. And today and what we've been working on this last week is kind of like to get behind the scenes, to see how people are grading the stamps, to learn about the experts, to see how they put portfolios together. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here today. So I'd just like Jeff to start off and say, who is Stanley Gibbons?
Well, Stanley Gibbons, the company was established by Edward Stanley Gibbons in 1856. And he was one of the very first stamp dealers in the world. In fact, he was born the same year as a penny black, the world's first stamp was printed. So we are now the oldest stamp dealer in the world. We're certainly the best known brand name worldwide for rare stamps and collectibles. We've been issued with the Royal Warrant, which means that we're philatelist the Queen's collection. So it's we're the biggest name, basically, in terms of collectibles. And of course, we're based here in London, although we have offices worldwide. So
when it comes to Stanley Gibbons, Stanley Gibbons is known throughout the world when it comes to collectibles, and more specifically, what we're going to talk about today, rare stamps.
Right.
Carl, why does ASI work with Stanley Gibbons? We know who they are, but why have we chosen to work with them?
Well, I think you just heard part of it. This company's been around almost as long as stamps has been here. They are the leader in collectibles and especially stamps. They have catalogs going back 100 years. They know what stamps are worth, they know what they're valued, and they're the ones that you come to when you want to know about stamps.
Well, that's one of the great things I've learned this week is how you price the stamps, how clients can see the liquidity in their stamps. Simply one way they can look up themselves what their stamp is worth. Not only when they're in a portfolio, you're going to give them a portfolio review, but a client can actually do it themselves. They don't have to go through you. They can look it up in the books how much or something. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yes, you need to have a certain amount of expertise to use our catalogs because they're designed as reference guides for collectors. So unless you're a collector, you may not be able to understand the terminology and the way the catalogs works. But yes, theoretically, the catalogs are published every year. So theoretically, anyone who has the knowledge can pick up the catalog and look up the values, Stanley Gibbons prices for any stamp in the world.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you take me a little bit through the process of how a portfolio is put together? How you might deal interaction with a client?
Sure. Well, when a client calls me or contacts me, the first thing I try to find out is what the client's goals are for that particular investment. Now, we don't encourage clients to put everything they have into stamps or even a large part of what they have into stamps. We advise clients to put a small amount, typically we're talking about 2%, 5% of their total portfolio in something like rare stamps and collectibles. So first of all, we establish what sort of amount the client wants to invest. Then we look at the time frame the client has in mind for that investment. It could be that it's someone who's approaching retirement. He may need funds in the next 5 years. It could be a younger person in their 30s who's looking for a longer term investment with maybe a little bit more risk in return for higher rates of return. So once we establish what the client wants, we then put together a portfolio of stamps, and we try and select stamps from different areas of collecting. Now, not all stamps will go up and down in value at the same rate, because there are some areas which suddenly become more popular with collectors and prices will go up. Other areas will become dormant and prices will stay flat. You have new countries which become popular with collectors, like China, for example, or Asian countries, and prices will go up for those areas. So for each client, we try and select 5 to 10 stamps from different areas of collecting. So all those stamps will be rare investment grade stamps. and they will be in as near perfect condition as we can manage depending on our stock. And from those investment grade stamps, we select a diversified portfolio for each client. And we can talk this through with each client. Once the client is happy with the portfolio and it fits in with the rest of his investments, then send us the paperwork and the funds for the investment.
And I actually think that's part two of why we've come to a company like this. We've actually learned this week there's over 3 million stamps in this building right now. And there are some expertise downstairs that go way back in stamps. They know what they're doing, they know what they're looking at. And then them, looking at all 3 million of these, they've come up with 300, usually at the most, that they would ever put into an investment type portfolio. That's going to be impossible for us to do on our own. If there's 3 million stamps downstairs, I'm never going to find the right one that's going to actually increase in value for me and take care of my portfolio. Another thing Stanley Gibbons can provide for us and going to do for you.
Yeah. And Carl, before we get to where Jeff is actually working with the client, we've been dealing with the Stanley Gibbons for quite a number of years now. We have several of our clients that have wonderful stamps in their portfolios. But when you're first talking to a client, how does that conversation normally go?
It's usually absolutely shocked. Stamps are something we use and stick on postage envelopes, and then we throw them away when we're done with them. So the concept and the idea of stamps being anything to put in your portfolio is a little foreign to them. And it takes some time for them to even get used to the concept of doing this in the first place.
And both of you can answer this question. We can start with Carl and move to Jeff. But once a client has taken that leap and they've made that, not only just filling out the paperwork and sending in the funds, but they actually have the stamp, they see the portfolio. What do you see? How does the client change? How do they react? What do they think then, once the process is complete?
And I'm sure Jeff can talk a little more about the history of it, but once someone gets in their hands or even just looking at pictures of this kind of history, it usually makes sense to them pretty quickly.
Yes. Well, so I've seen the stamps and I've explained how each stamp is selected and why it's rare or valuable and how the portfolio is diversified. Typically they understand a little bit more, they're more comfortable with it. Once they receive all the paperwork and they see the process has gone smoothly, they see the signed contract with the images of the stamps, they're much more inclined actually to top up within the next 12 months or even sooner. So very quickly a client will become comfortable with stamps and will be happy to add more to their portfolio. They can also look at their portfolio online. We do valuations every year so they can see which stamps have gone up in value. We can discuss the options for selling some of the items to raise funds or to reinvest into different stamps. So yeah, typically I have clients who've been with Stanley Gibbons since I started with the company in 2005. And many of the clients have invested, reinvested once, twice, 3 times. So they're very comfortable with it usually.
And then another advantage that may not even occur to Americans who are thinking about this is you'll be buying the stamps here from an English company in British pounds. So you've now not only got your portfolio diversified into a new asset class, you're also putting yourself in a different currency, getting a little bit away from the American dollar.
So you're getting an asset that's outside the U.S. or in a different location depending on where you are in the world. And you also have Hong Kong storage, which is a possibility?
That's right. We have offices around the world. So I'm based here in London, but we have investment offices in the Channel Islands, in Guernsey and Jersey, which are actually outside the UK. And we also have offices in Asia, in Hong Kong and Singapore. So we can offer clients the option of having the stamps stored in Guernsey, in the Channel Islands, or in Hong Kong, whichever they prefer.
Okay. And when you're also selecting and you're looking at stamps, one of the things that I found was the Stanley Gibbons name stands behind every one of these stamps that's in one of these portfolios because you guarantee the authenticity of the stamps.
Right, yeah. Any stamp that you purchase from Stanley Gibbons it has a lifetime guarantee of authenticity. Now that applies to, as Carl said, we have 3 million stamps downstairs. It could be a stamp for a couple of dollars. Or it could be stamps for £100,000. So it doesn't matter what the value of the stamp, they all have a lifetime guarantee of authenticity.
And Carl, was there anything in particular you found when you're with Stanley Gibbons, with the people either in the investment department or say in the Commonwealth Department or the Great Britain Department. I mean, it's vast. Once you open up the door behind the office, it's quite an operation out here. What is something in particular that you found?
Well, I think you just covered a little bit of it, that there's a diverse amount of stamps in the world. We might have all just thought stamps was one thing. It isn't. There are specialized departments down there dealing with different parts of the world, different types of stamps down there. We already discussed how many stamps there are. That's a lot of stamps to go through. It's a lot of stamps to go through and figure out which ones are rare, which ones are unique, and which ones are authentic. And they have to do all three of those things before they're ever going to present those to any clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know one thing that I really liked, and I'm going to ask Jeff to talk about the option for purchasing. I know you have a couple of programs that a client can get into, but right off the bat, even before you start to get into the options, what I really love is you have an exit strategy already for the client. The client knows before they make the purchase all their options to getting out of the investment if there's an emergency, or if they decide it's the time to liquidate this holding and put into another holding. You already have that figured out for them.
Right. And I think that's actually probably the most important part, the most important factor when you're going into collectibles is to work out what your exit strategy is. Because anyone can walk into an auction or to an antique dealer and say, what's the most valuable thing you have, and take it at home. And they may end up with a nice antique or a nice painting, but it's not an investment until they sell it and make a profit. Mm-hmm. And that's the mistake that most people make, is they don't work out how to sell their stamps. Now, as you mentioned, we have a number of different investment products. You're buying the same stamps, but you know when you purchase them how you're going to sell them. Now, the best way is usually to ask Stanley Gibbons to sell the items for you. So we will then market the stamps at our catalogue prices. We will put them on our website, which is the biggest stamp website in the world. They'll be here in our shop in London, or we mail them out in mailing lists to our collectors. So we will market and sell the stamp for you. And in exchange for doing that, we take a percentage of the profit. Now, this is a percentage of the profit, so it's a performance fee. So Stanley Gibbons' interests are aligned with the investor's interests, because the more the investor makes, the more Stanley Gibbons makes. Mm-hmm. So it's in our interest to select stamps that we think will perform well for you. Now, as well as asking Stanley Gibbons to sell the stamps for you, you can ask us to put it into a public auction. We hold public auctions here several times over the year. And if you decide, with our advice, that an item is suitable for a public auction, you can submit it. You don't have to pay any commission, so you get the full hammer price there, which is unusual for stamp dealers, but as an investor, you don't pay any commission. The third option is that you can sell the stamp yourself. If you can work out a deal with a collector, or if you have a dealer who's willing to sell the stamps for you for a better rate, you're free to do that. And then nothing is payable to Stanley Gibbons. You don't have to pay us anything. We'll send the stamps for you, and you can arrange that sale. Or you can give them away to your children or grandchildren as part of their inheritance. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of different options available. And as I said, that is the most important part of our investment products, is that your exit options are well defined right at the start.
And when you're talking about the sharing in the profits, the Stanley Gibbons has a vested interest in the stamps they select for you, right, doing well in the future, because hypothetically, I'm not saying this is going to happen, that you have a 20,000 pound portfolio. 5 years later, it's still 20,000 pounds. Stanley Gibbons has stored it and insured it and maintained the stamp for you. They provided their expertise, but if they only realize 20,000 pounds, the Stanley Gibbons did not receive any more remuneration. Yeah. The only way we make money is if the investor makes money. Mm-hmm. We don't have any management fees or annual charges, and as you said, the storage is free of charge. So it's in our interest to pick stamps that we think will go up in value. I mean, we try. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. And you may find that one stamp in a portfolio doesn't change in value, but usually you find that they will show consistent returns. Hopefully one or two of them will show spectacular returns, maybe double or triple in price. Yeah. But we can't predict which ones they will be, and that's why we select a diversified portfolio. And that's why not only is stamps diversifying your portfolio, you actually have a diversified portfolio of stamps that helps spread your risk depending on your goals. Right. And if you're
approaching retirement, you need to have a guaranteed amount available in 5 years. You can pick blue chip British and Commonwealth stamps.
Mhm.
On the other hand, if you're younger, you've got a little bit of money you want to have fun with, pick some Chinese stamps.
Yeah.
They're really going up in price at the moment, but the price is more volatile than British stamps. There's chances of short-term corrections in prices.
Mhm.
But it could be that 10% of Chinese stamps in your portfolio could outperform all the rest.
Mhm.
That's your call as an investor.
Coral, after this week, are you more excited about stamps than when we got here on Saturday?
I don't know if I'm more excited, but perhaps more convinced. I think this is something that can go in everyone's portfolio. I think it has a place in almost any portfolio out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what I found, and the thing I take away the most from this is when we were down and getting a briefing from George in the Commonwealth Department, and one of the things we were talking about was counterfeit and forgeries and frauds. And he was talking about, he was looking at one stamp, and he said, and he knew it was a fraud, a counterfeit, because the glue did not smell right. and for me, that kind of sold me, because I'm like, these people know what the glue is supposed to smell like on the back of the stamp. That is an unparalleled amount of expertise, and that. To me, that seals the deal for me. I mean, these are people who really care about what they're doing. And for the client, for our client, this is a great strategy to have, because you have an uncorrelated asset that allows you to diversify not only in the location of where you're storing it, diversify not only in the stamps, but diversify in currency, because it's held in British pounds. So you're outside of US dollar or another denomination that you normally trade in. But also it has the exit strategy already built in, predetermined. The client knows all throughout the process what they're going to have to pay at the end, or not so much what they're going to pay, but how much they're going to receive at the end. So you guys have created just a great product, and I really appreciate coming out here this week. So
Great.
Jeff, thank you very much
Thanks,
for your
Steve.
hospitality. And Carl, always my right-hand man.
Thanks again,
Look
Jeff.
forward
Thanks,
to seeing you. Carl, once a client has decided that this is something they really need to look into, what's the next step?
The very next step is I would like to speak to you, and let's just discuss this and make sure it is proper for your portfolio. It's something that's good for you. So I'd like to ask that you either give us a phone call at 877-340-0790, or send me an email at info@assetstrategies.com.
Thanks again for your time, and we want to help you keep what's yours. We think Rare Stamps is a great option. Thank you.